whenever I come back from a date like that, this is usually how it goes. I'm like, I have such a crush on this person. I'm so excited. And Ari's like, oh, I'm so excited for you. And then I think probably half the time she's like, I actually have a crush on them too.
I think probably more than I think probably every time.
Almost every time.
Hi everyone, I am Fernanda, or Fer for short, and this is Polycurious. Today's episode might be actually one of my favorites of the season because our guests have a very flexible relationship that allows for a lot of exploration. And even if you and your partner don't have this type of relationship, I feel like there's still a lot to learn from them. So today I am speaking with Ari and Jeshua, a polyamorous couple that has been together for 2.5 years. And in our conversation, we talk about their journey from being polycurious to becoming polyamorous. We talk about their experiences dating people together and separately, finding a polyamorous community, and how that led Jeshua to embrace his bisexual side. We talk about all the things that they are gaining from their relationship, including learning and growing from secondary relationships, having feelings of compersion, and exploring their sexuality. And we have a very interesting conversation about getting more comfortable in expressing to your primary the feelings that you might be having for someone else. I can't wait to hear what you guys may have to say about this episode, and we really do cover a lot. So here's my interview with Ari and Jeshua. Welcome, Ari and Jeshua, my neighbors, which is amazing. Like, I had never had the chance to just walk a few steps and be already at the interview. I met you guys through common friends who just realized you guys also lived in the building. And I think we've met once before at this gathering we had, and you guys just kind of popped in, and it was really nice to meet you and learn that you were non-monogamous as well. But besides that, I don't really know anything about your journey. So I can't wait to dive in.
Excited for it, yeah.
Yeah.
You get to know us at the same time as we get to be on the interview.
Exactly. So why don't we start by just learning a little bit more about yourselves? What do you guys do? How old are you? When did you guys meet? How long have you been together? So many questions already.
Yeah. Well, I'm Jeshua, and I'm 35. What do? I do a lot of different things. My main profession is in machine learning engineering in the tech world. And also I teach at City College, teach machine learning, and I also do put a lot of time into sketch comedy. I just recently did a sketch comedy show. So my hands are in a bunch of different things right now, but and this summer I'm working on a filmed version of that sketch comedy show. So that's a bit about me.
So you directed that?
Yeah, I wrote and directed it.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I wrote and directed a play in college. Obviously, I'm sure that
Cool.
not as good as your comedy sketch, but you're saying that now it's gonna be made
a film version that I'll release online. Yeah.
Oh my
God.
That's
my main project right now.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Fun. That sounds amazing. Congrats.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ari. I'm 31. I'm a physician assistant. I work in transplant medicine. And currently trying to start a uterus transplant program, which is like my professional goal right now.
Amazing. And before we go into maybe when you guys learned about non-monogamy, how long have you guys been together, and how did you guys meet?
About 2.5 years now.
Yeah.
And we met on Field.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Field is an app. I've never actually used it, but it's cool that you tell your sexual preferences, right?
And most people on it are not monogamous in some way, I'd say.
Yeah, it's definitely for a lot more non-monogamous people and people
and
with
queer
people.
more queer people on it.
Yeah. Well, great resource for those out there looking for alternative dating apps.
Yeah, I got really lucky. Ari was the first person I went on a date with from Field.
Oh wow!
I got so lucky. I had like originally gotten on it because I was seeing someone else who was poly, and she recommended trying out Field, and it just went so well. It was right before the pandemic too.
Awesome. What date number was Jeshua for you, Ari?
Oh my God, there are a lot of people on Field. I actually was on Field before it became Field. It used to be something called like Thrinder, and it was just for like finding threesomes, basically.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then it morphed into Field.
Okay,
Tinder
cool.
sued them or something like that.
Yeah.
Really?
So I'd been on there for a while.
Yeah.
So obviously you were already in the scene. How did you come across this world?
I'd been in this world for, when I met Josh, probably like close to 5 years. I was in like the kink scene for a while, and going to like play parties and things. And just kind of, that was like my first introduction. Somebody I went on a date with invited me to one of those kind of like open play parties. And I was just, didn't play and just talked to people the entire night and learned. I had no idea that polyamory or non-monogamy was a thing. Never even heard of it. And that was just like down the rabbit hole for me of just exploring all of the possibilities and the whole spectrum of like casual dating to like trying to be fully poly and everything in between. And I had no idea that any of it existed, and just kind of exploring what all of that was.
And what do you think that was what attracted you to that world?
Just the freedom of it. I always felt wrong in a monogamous relationship. I always had been attracted to other people. I never cheated on somebody in my relationships, but always wanted to, and always felt like, what's wrong with me? Like, why am I attracted to all these people? Isn't my partner enough? And just like always felt like I was a terrible person, and then would have to end my relationship, and they would be like, why? This relationship is going so well. And I'm like, I know, but like everyone else is awesome too. So that was so freeing to me of like, wow, everyone is a possibility of like, you don't have to limit yourself to one person. And there's so many incredible people in this city alone.
And how did you navigate that period, like going to play parties and I assume like kind of dating different people? Were these people always from the play scene, or were there people that you had to kind of like explain, like, hey, I'm seeing other people? Because especially recently, I've had a lot of people asking about solo poly. Like, how do you date when you don't have a partner, but you also don't want a partner necessarily, or don't want a monogamous partner? How do you like express that to other people?
It's really hard. I didn't have the terms at the time for what I was doing. So I was kind of just like flying blind. And I was actually just talking to Josh about this recently. I was like, it was really hard I didn't want a serious partner at the time. And I just wanted to explore all of this. And I definitely did not do a good job at it, because I definitely, there were a few people who I like got closer to and then had to like sort of pump the brakes or like end things because they wanted more than I could give them. But I didn't have the vocabulary at the time to be like, no, I want to be solo poly and don't want a serious partner right now. So definitely did not do a good job managing that. But over time, I met more people who had the vocabulary and the communication skills that I think I definitely needed. I mean, I was young.
How long ago was this?
It was probably like 7 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think just exploring through meeting people and seeing the different types of relationships that were available and like how people navigated those lives is kind of how I figured out what I wanted. I didn't figure it out until kind of right before I met Josh of like, this is the kind of relationship that I want. So it took a while.
Yeah, sometimes you don't know until you experience it, right? Like, I think for me, before I started seeing Seth, even though he's monogamous, I was like, oh, I think I want like a polyamorous relationship, or try that, and then I was like, well, I think at this point, I think I just want like friends with benefits. I don't know if like maybe one of those friends will become more than just a friend, but like you don't really know until you actually experience it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Especially like for a long time, I was like joining a lot of couples and how they navigated those spaces. And I think those were a lot of really interesting scenarios of like kind of watching what worked and what didn't for a lot of people, and just the options, and also how things went poorly with like bad communication.
Right, you had those examples of
Yeah.
like the healthy and unhealthy couples, and and how did you navigate that? I mean, well, first of all, why were you so interested in dating couples?
It was just kind of fun. It sort of happened. I met one couple and dated them for a while, and then eventually things got a little messy and ended things, and then it just kind of met another. There's a lot of couples looking for women.
Yeah.
And it was kind of just like a fun. You're almost like you're entering someone else's life, like to join two people who have like a fully formed relationship, and kind of like stepping into this new world, and like kind of being a spectator of like how their relationship works and what they do well and what they don't do well. And I don't know, it's kind of fun.
Yeah, no, for sure. I totally understand, but I was just curious how you got into that. But for people who might be like dating couples, because you mentioned some of the couples were more healthy than the others, what do you think are some of like maybe red flags that some people who are like secondary partners to couples might want to like watch out for?
Just making sure everything is very open communication. Like, I always really like the couples that like put the three of us in a group text and that was it. Like, there was never any side texting. Like, it all felt kind of out in the open, and just like setting the ground rules of for exactly what they were comfortable for, what the expectations were. If somebody doesn't feel comfortable about talking about boundaries or expectations, I feel like that's not a great sign that they don't exactly know what they want, which I feel like is setting you up for a possible disaster.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned that you, even before you met Jeshua, weren't exactly sure of what you wanted. Like, where were you at that point in your journey in terms of what you thought you wanted?
I thought I was just going to be like solo poly and not have a serious partner, and didn't want anything tethering me down. And then that switched.
Yeah. Where were you at in your journey, Jeshua? You said she was the first person you dated on field, but did you have
Yeah.
any experiences in non-monogamy before that?
Yeah, I had been exposed to non-monogamy maybe a year and a half before I met Ari. I was dating someone who was poly and had a serious boyfriend, and that was like really eye-opening into what this could be like. And it sort of like started to click for me that that was what I wanted, seeing how it worked for her and how I was thinking about all of my past monogamous relationships, of how I felt the same thing, of just like never feeling totally satisfied, always wanting to like flirt with other people, always wanting to just get to know other people in other ways, and feeling really just not fully living the life that I wanted to live in monogamous relationships. And I had seen it with this partner. I just sort of took her advice, my partner's advice, of like, you should meet about someone who's poly and like explore this. Like, this is what you probably want. And so I kind of just took her advice on that
And
and
she
got feel.
picked up on that because you were enjoying
I think because of
seeing.
how easy it was for me also, and how much I wanted it. Like just the navigating jealousy and all of that was really easy for me from the beginning. And um I think it was just now that I'm been fully in it, I realize like that it is very natural for me, that it's been quite easy, um, and has made so much sense. And I think she saw that. I think because she had dated a lot of people, and I think seeing that it was what I wanted was pretty clear to her. So I was really appreciative of her kind of giving me that advice and pushing me in that direction. I was also in the same mode as Ari at the time, where I was kind of like, I'm new to this. I want to explore. I don't want a serious relationship. And then, I just met Ari, and it just like really, really clicked. And like there was a great benefit of the pandemic in there, and that we got together and had like a really great, immediate connection. And then 3 months in, the pandemic happened, and we were sort of in this like forced monogamish relationship. When we were like totally locked down, we weren't seeing anyone else. We both had like partners separately, but we didn't see them during like the height of the beginning of the pandemic, when we were all super super cautious. But then I think we both started seeing those partners 4 or 5 months in.
And when did you guys move in together? Did you move in together like because of the
Oh, we
pandemic?
no, we
actually
don't.
we actually don't live together.
Oh, you guys
No.
don't live
No,
together.
no.
Okay, okay, interesting. So whose apartment
This is my
this?
apartment.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
cool, cool.
We spent a lot of time here though.
Yeah. I basically I'm a bi-borough liver. Live in Manhattan now, but I'm moving to Brooklyn. I'm moving to Bushwick at the end of the summer.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, welcome to the dark side.
Yeah. No, I'm excited. Well, like I'm gonna live here for like a year. I've never lived by myself, and then we're gonna move in together.
That's the plan right now.
Yeah, I was wondering because, yeah, it sounded for a moment I thought maybe you guys just jumped in, like moved in together
God,
because
no.
of the pandemic. Because a lot of
No.
couples did that, even like people who had just met, you know?
And honestly, I think this is one part of just the good relationship we have, and like the value of poly for me is I've had some difficult experiences moving in with people quickly in the past, and our relationship's been going so good, and I've just sort of communicated like I really like how it's been going. I don't want to rush this. I think we have plenty of time. So our plan is kind of this like 1 year out. It's been so easy to communicate that. And I think this is something that's been so good about poly for me and about Ari in general, having taught me really good communication in everything in a relationship. And it's not even just about the dating other people or having sex with other people and communicating about that, but just communicating about my wants and needs in a relationship and being kind of open to having that sort of relationship escalator be something that I have a say in and I'm putting thought into rather than sort of a falling into this, which is in all my previous monogamous relationships, it was always this like, it just felt like this falling, like onto this flight of stairs or something that it just sort of happened. It was sort of just went in some direction that it was supposed to go. And I never really felt like I had control over creating the relationship that I wanted. And now with the communication and like good, just being comfortable with saying what I want. And Ari's just always so like, tell me what you need. That's all I want. And I feel very comfortable in expressing those wants. And I've never had that in a relationship before where I always felt scared of expressing what I really wanted because my partner would get angry at me or misconstrue it as something else. And in this relationship, I've never really felt that way. I don't think even once felt that me communicating something has made things worse. It's always made things better. And I've learned over the last, 2.5 years of just being much more comfortable after a kind of emotionally difficult monogamous relationship where I think I learned a lot of really bad patterns of communication.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's hard, but it becomes easier as you do it, right? Like when you want to say something like, oh, I want to see this other person, or I don't want what you want from the relationship, or whatever it is like, oh, it feels so heavy and
Yeah.
it's like so difficult, but you just kind of have to be like, okay, just say it.
Yeah.
And like the moment you do that, first of all, the weight is like taken off your shoulders. And second of all, it just becomes easier with time, like it's like a muscle that you have to practice, and it's almost like unlearning a little bit what we've been taught, which is not necessarily like don't talk about your feelings, but kind of like only talk about the feelings that are appropriate for a monogamous relationship. Especially talking about desires when they involve other people can be really hard. Like telling your partner like, I'm really into this other person. Like that's like scary to do, but you have to remember you're not doing anything wrong for being into another person, even though we're conditioned to thinking that you're doing something wrong. Right?
Yeah, to like kind of like almost lie to your partner and be like, no, I'm not interested in anyone else. Like, no, we all have eyes. Everyone's attractive.
And for me, the thing that's been most mind-blowing about the positivity of the relationship is the being able to advocate for myself. Of what I want personally in my life. In a previous monogamous relationship, I remember a moment in which I expressed, I want to go hang out with these friends without you, or I need more time to myself. And I remember both of those conversations turning into these horrible arguments of, oh, you want more time to yourself? Do you not love me? Da, 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 all this like horrible things. Or like, you don't want me to hang out with your friends? Like, why not? You don't want me around them. When in reality, it's just, I don't want to be in a partnership in which we're joined at the hip. I like having my own time. I like having independent relationships with friends. And realizing that I can advocate for my own boundaries and the things that I want has made the relationship work so easily. And Ari makes it really, she does this little trick that I would recommend everybody. She just like, at some very regular interval, she's like, relationship check-in, let's talk about stuff for out of the blue. And it's just so nice because I just remember never even knowing how to start those conversations in monogamous relationships because it always felt like such a big deal. Like, we have to talk.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And she just opens up the communication very regularly, like maybe like once a week. It's like relationship check-in, anything you want to talk about. And it's just like, okay, this is great. And it's such a simple thing, but it makes such a big difference because it takes off the sort of entry point to like start some kind of conversation.
Yeah. Ari, do you do it like at points when you feel like you want to say something or when you feel like he might have something to say, or just randomly?
All three actually. Sometimes you'll notice like something's obviously wrong with like your partner, or like something's bothering you, and like that's just like an easy way to transition to it instead of like, I have a problem, I need to talk to you about this. And just sometimes like in your mind you think everything's fine, but something may not be fine with your partner and you're just like completely oblivious, which I feel like we all are at times. And I totally stole that from a couple I dated where they did that and I was like, I love this.
Nice.
So I was like, this is so great.
Yeah, we have that, but we have it like scheduled, not spontaneous. But it's funny you say that because I literally released an episode today with Marcella. She talks about it and we talk about it in the episode. And actually right before I came here, I had my relationship, which I'm gonna actually start calling it relationship check-in. I like that because now on our calendar is relationship talk, and it sounds very serious, but we couldn't like come up with something else. I'm gonna change it to check-in, relationship checking. And like what I was saying in the episode that I released today was that sometimes it's deeper stuff and sometimes it's silly stuff, but like it's just good to get it out of the way. Like literally our check-in was like, all good, like I love you, we had a great birthday weekend with friends, but I hate it when you shush me. And like you shush me the other day, and I'm like, it's my pet peeve. So like, please don't do that. So sometimes it's just silly stuff like that, and some other times it's like, okay, so how are you feeling about this person that you're dating, or how are we doing sexually, or things like that. But definitely highly recommend the relationship check-in, whether you do it like spontaneously like you guys do, or you have it like scheduled in your calendars.
Definitely.
And I like it even not just for like if something's bothering you or you think something's bothering your partner, it could be positive too. Like it doesn't just have to be like a negative thing.
That you do that really well too. Yeah, I think like in particular the other day I advocated for myself saying I like needed a night to myself or something like that, which is really hard for me to do. And I remember you just being like, hell yeah, thank you for that. It's just, and it felt so good to be like, oh yeah, I did something good. not like I'm doing something wrong.
What kind of conversations did you have about the type of relationship that you wanted to have?
Yeah, I think the first conversations I remember about it, and I remember them being difficult for me because I was newer to it, was with someone else I was seeing at the beginning of the pandemic, talking to Ari about this person and just expressing that I had feelings for this person. And I just remember those first conversations being really hard for me. But then when I brought it up, it was so easy. It's something I shouldn't have been scared of. I remember Ari being like, oh, that's great.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about that. I mean, Ari, you had experience in the non-monogamous world, so you were receptive to it. But I think that even people who say they are non-monogamous might not be as receptive to their partner being like, okay, I have feelings for someone else. Some couples even have that boundary, which to me is ridiculous because you can't control how you feel about someone, right? Any tips as to how to say that? And from your perspective, Ari, why do you think you were able to be like, oh, that's great that you have feelings for someone else?
I mean, I think there always is. If I know Jesh is like going off on a date, sometimes there'll be like a couple seconds of jealousy. And then I'll be like, wait, no, this person is amazing and they're having a great time and they're doing X, Y, or Z. And that like compersion feeling of like, oh, no, this is great. This is awesome. I mean, I think to say like I don't feel any jealousy ever, like that's irrational. But It's definitely something that I'm like, this is a silly feeling, or this is a feeling I'm having, and then maybe addressing like, why am I feeling like this? And often if I do ever experience any like lingering jealousy, it's often like a personal insecurity that like is something like I want to work on myself for, and like try and spin it to positive and being like, okay, why do I feel like this? Okay, how can I address this, and how can I like work towards like fixing something like that? And it's often never like my feelings about Jesh or like doing anything. It's often generally something about myself, which I think is really interesting. I think just the whole idea of this poly world of just like taking the weight off of yourself of being the whole person for someone else. Like no one is everything for one person. We have this one partner that we both see, but Jesh also sees them like solo, and they're like this super artsy creative person, and it's like that's their like livelihood. Like they work in like puppets, and it's like they're so creative, and it's like I'm a creative person too, but that's not like my, it's just something I like to do. And Jesh is like super creative as well, and for that person to inspire him and like to like kind of push him in that creative direction is something that I wouldn't do. So to like have other people from like all walks of life push you and inspire you in different ways and like just open you up to different parts of the world, I think is like the best part of this. And like to know that somebody can provide that for him where I can't or wouldn't naturally is something that I think is really important to me. And like just like this whole lifestyle.
Yeah, you brought up that person in particular, and yeah, it was a really special moment. And I actually think that was one of the first like one-on-one dates I went on with someone in that community. Um, and I remember it being this overwhelmingly positive experience where I was like, look, this person is amazing, and I don't think that I would want to have a primary relationship with them anyway, but having this experience with them and getting to be inspired by their work and pushed by her creative dreams and getting to like talk through our creative dreams was such a special moment and really pushed me. I think that was one of the moments that really propelled me to make my recent show happen, was having that. And again, I think it's just this beauty of having these relationships that are various levels between friendship and romantic, where like I think it might have been harder to have reached that point with a purely non-romantic, non-sexual friend where we would have pushed each other that same way. I feel like it really allows this type of emotional connection with somebody so deeply because you're allowing yourself to be intimate with them in lots of different ways. And I think that's what's so beautiful about it for me, is this ability to get to know so many different people, so many inspiring people, and have many people in your life in a deep way, with it just really being a positive force.
That's kind of why I'm into non-monogamy, because I like to connect with people in whatever way feels organic and in ways that are fulfilling. And I feel like some people are like, well, but then why can't you just like have friends? Like if it really isn't about the sex, why do you need to have sex with these people or be romantic with these people? And it's just that even if you don't have the sex, just the possibility like creates like an intimate environment that allows for so much more.
You're not putting all these blockers up about what this relationship is going to be with this person. It can be limitless. There's so many possibilities of what it could be.
Yeah, exactly. Thinking like, oh, I wouldn't want to be primaries with this person, but I can see how I gain all of these things from my relationship with them. That's great. But has it ever happened to you that like, because it's happened to me that I'm really into someone, I'm just like starting seeing. And that's when that conversation of like telling my partner, I really like this person, is difficult, because when it's like, I'm really into this person, but like, I'm not as into them as I'm into you or whatever, it's like easier. And of course, like at the end of the day, with this situation that I'm talking about, it was just like the new relationship energy, probably.
That's
right?
what I was going to say. Yeah.
But then for me, it was like being really nervous about it, just telling Seth, listen, even if it's not with this person, I'm going to probably fall in love at some point with someone, because it wasn't the first time I had feelings for someone, but it was the first time that I had told him. And it felt like such a heavy thing. And it was difficult for him. It wasn't like Ari, like, oh, that's so great that, you have feelings for someone else. Like, he was like hurt by it. But then after we had the talk, I was like so much lighter because, I was honest and I said how I felt about this person. And also then I realized it was maybe just a new relationship energy, and I don't have to freak out about it. But I feel like a lot of people who are like new to polyamory or non-monogamy start seeing someone new, and then they start having a lot of excitement and feelings for this person, and then they kind of like freak out because they're like, oh my god, like, does this mean it's gonna like fuck up my relationship with my primary? I don't know if you guys have gone through like a process like that at all.
I mean, we've definitely like gone through waves of like being very excited about people and like
often together.
Yeah.
We're both being excited about the same people. We date together a lot.
Yeah.
I think for me, it definitely has not been a problem yet. I could see it being difficult at some point.
Yeah.
The way that it's worked is I have this new relationship energy. And I'm very excited about somebody. I said before, this idea you have a new relationship with somebody, it can be any type of relationship. But I think with the way that our relationship is set up, it can't be quite any relationship. It can't be a primary relationship. And I think that it does like put a little bit of some level of a like emotional boundary for me, even if it's very slight. I just kind of know that, yes, this can be anything within this spectrum, which is this person's not going to be, my primary partner. So far, it's been very natural to navigate that new relationship energy and really take it as something exciting and fun and meaningful and really deep. I feel like I have really, really deep relationships with all of my partners, and at the same time realize that it is different than the relationship and the feelings I have with Ari. I can't say that it's always going to be the case. Like, I don't know. I know I've heard lots of, examples of where it becomes really difficult, but I don't think we've had a difficult version of this so far.
Yeah, and I think you have a good point, with this awareness of I'm really into this person, but I have a primary and I'm not looking for a primary in this person. And this is new relationship energy, and experiencing new relationship energy is fine. Because I think that was probably the issue, like talking about my situation, was that like I didn't realize that it's fine and it's normal to feel that. But then you go on a date with someone you have new relationship energy with, and you feel all these things and butterflies and stuff, and then you go back to your partner, and then it's just mundane because it's not new, right? And then you kind of forget that it's not about the person, that it's just about the situation, the fact that one is a shiny new object and the other one, or maybe not object, subject, a shiny new subject, and the other one will never be a new relationship energy again.
Yeah. I mean, this maybe sounds kind of cheesy, but I feel like there's so much like magical sparkliness in our relationship also that I haven't really like, no, it's true. It's true.
I know.
There's like so much like sparkle to it. And yeah, it's different. It's not that new relationship energy. But whenever I come back from a date like that, this is usually how it goes. I'm like, I have such a crush on this person. I'm so excited. And Ari's like, oh, I'm so excited for you. And then I think probably half the time she's like, I actually have a crush on them too.
I think probably more than I think probably every time.
Yeah, almost every time. I don't know. I think that we also are very, right now, I guess I only have one person I see, one partner who we don't also see together. I think that's also changed the dynamics. I think we're very fluid with this like poly friend group. It just really feels like we share in each other's excitement for our feelings for other people. And so some of that magic like comes back into our relationship too at the same time. But I think also what you said of that other feeling of just sort of also coming from that bubbly new relationship feeling, and then coming back and remembering also the like deep feelings for this really solid, long relationship.
Yeah. the new relationship energy kind of spreads to your old relationship. That's amazing. But if you don't have that and you're new to poly and you go on a date and have these like bubbly feelings and then go back to your partner and you don't have them, you might be like, does this mean that I'm gonna break up with my partner? Blah, blah, blah. You know, so I think that for me at least was a process to be like, no, this is new relationship energy. It's fine.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna break up with my partner.
Yeah.
It's okay for me to feel these feelings. And I did have that conversation with him and I did tell him like I'm having feelings for this person. But now I don't even feel like I need to say it. I mean, our structure is different, right? Because we have a little bit of a don't ask, don't tell situation. I think Seth prefers just not to know. If like he notices that I'm getting really serious with someone and he like wants to know, he'll ask, what are your feelings about this person? But before I almost felt like I needed to say it because I felt guilty because I felt like it wasn't right for me to feel those things. Now I'm like, I don't even feel like I need to say it because I know I'm not doing anything wrong. And I know that he knows now that we had that conversation that that's a possibility that I might fall in love with someone and we're comfortable with it now.
I think something really lovely about this kind of relationship, kind of like echoing what you're saying, is that you get to experience that. And I don't know, to me, it feels so safe because I know I have Jesh, and like getting to experience that with like multiple people is such like an incredible way to like build a friendship or whatever we call them, entanglement. I don't even know, just like with all of our friends. And to get to experience those emotions with someone in kind of a safe capacity, especially once like we're pretty good at communicating of like what our allowance is, what like our expectations are in like a relationship outside of our own, and just like kind of entering that with like very clear communication of like what we can give to other people. And then, all right, these are our limits, and everything else in between is like, let's do it. Being able to like freely share that like joy with other people is such an incredible thing. And then share it back with each other is.
I definitely remember the first times I had to communicate that. It's just gotten easier ever since. I think at first I was worried about saying I have a crush on somebody. We're very open about our relationships with other people. And I remember at first being a little nervous. Like I felt like I almost had to play it cool a little bit. I had to be like, yeah, it was great. I like them, you know? And then eventually after some date where I was just like so bubbly about it and I was like trying to hold it back. And then I was like, whatever. And I just let it out. And Ari was just really receptive to it and excited for me. And I remember like, yeah, I think like you mentioned like a couple moments of jealousy, and I really appreciated that, like honesty of that, of just being like, oh, I did experience a couple minutes of jealousy and then it went away. I thought through it. But that moment of jealousy was when I was on the date, not when I was telling her about my feelings.
Yeah.
And so then realizing that I didn't have to hold back or hide that made it so much easier. And it I felt like it brought us closer too. I think being able to share something that you love with your partner and something that you're excited about or an experience you had that is really wonderful is such a great feeling. Like I love talking about, you know, like we didn't see each other for a couple of days and we talk about something that happened during our week that was fun. Like that feeling is so good. And it's a similar feeling to that of like, I met this person. I'm so excited. This is what we did. I'm excited to see them again. And then I was scared at first. And then her reaction was so positive. So like so much compersion in it that it's just my natural like barriers there from monogamy days and all of that, you know, break down. The more we experience this, the more I see that feedback, and the more we communicate about it.
Yeah, and it's awesome that you were both able to feel compassion for him and also say, I did feel a little jealousy, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that, some people say that compassion is the opposite of jealousy, but not really, because you can kind of feel both at the same time, right?
Yeah.
And like, I bet there's a lot of partners who are like, I want to feel compassion and I want my partner to be able to come back from a date, tell me that they're really excited about this person. But then when they do it, they might feel like jealous or whatever, and being able to be like, okay, I feel a little jealous, but I'm also happy about you. I think that's a good thing. And also again, everyone has different boundaries, right? Like my partner doesn't want to hear.
Yeah.
You guys are okay with it. So also determining where you stand in that spectrum of like how much the person
Yeah.
is going to share, I think it's
Yeah.
important.
I think it's really important to be on the same page. And I think we are lucky in that I think we both practice it pretty similarly. Yeah, I think for me, it's usually like, again, like a moment of jealousy. It's even just like 20 seconds. And then like it gets overwhelmed with this feeling of excitement for Ari because I just love that she's having a good time. Like when you text me, like, I had a great date or something like that.
I think something that we've never had to talk about, but just something that I've experienced with other partners of like trying to navigate any kind of like open poly relationship with people. Because there have been some people that I've dated more seriously in the poly world. I had one partner do this to me where we were kind of dating seriously for a little while. And then he started going on dates with other people, and I felt jealous. And he asked me like why I felt the jealousy, like exactly what reasons, like what did I think
Mm.
that would lead to, or like was I feeling insecure about myself, or was I thinking that it like didn't mean that his feelings were real towards me, and just like really breaking that down and like kind of dissecting it and like figuring out like it ended up being like, okay, I needed more from him than he was willing to give, and it was like, okay, this isn't gonna work. But just kind of like acknowledging that of like figuring out why you feel this way and like what you can do to try and like alleviate that. I mean, it's never going to go away, but just trying to like break it apart as opposed to it just being like a negative thing on the table rather than something that could be constructive in like your relationship.
Yeah, and if you actually break it down, sometimes you realize how irrational
Yeah.
your fears are. So many good topics already. Yeah, well, I'm a little curious about how you guys have approached like dating together. So when you were in the pandemic, you were each kind of seeing other partners, and then at what point did you start dating people together, and how did that evolve?
um so we both agreed to start kind of like opening back up, not so much like of like a relationship point, but like safe from like a pandemic point of view. And Josh went on field, and the second person he met on field was a very good friend of ours now. I mean, you should be telling them.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to sound like an advertisement for Field.
We're not paid by them.
Well, we were both on Field, and we were both looking for individual people and couples. And I met this now partner and like best friend of ours
Yeah.
on Field. And again, it was the first person when we opened up again that I met off Field. I don't know how I got so lucky, but she and I had just this immediate like goofy chemistry. We went on a amazing first date and just hit it off so well. Immediately, she's like, I want to meet your partner also. And we all three like did a dinner as like a platonic dinner. And then we had another one, which we all cooked up, and it was so much fun. And we just had this incredible time. All three of us had just this like incredible chemistry together, just joking and just as friends, and chemistry and all of it was just so great.
So we went on that date with her, the three of us, and then it was like a couple days before Valentine's Day, and she's like, "Oh, I'm watching our friend's apartment. We're having like a Valentine's Day friends get together." And she's like, "Come over to this apartment that we're watching." She's like, "I have the best friends." And Josh and I were like, "Okay, sure." And
She did say it was going to be a play party ahead of time.
Oh yeah, she did.
She
Okay.
did. Yeah.
And Josh has never been to anything like
I
this.
hadn't
This is
before
his
that,
first one. Or she prefaced it of like, it'll be a hangout, but probably will turn into a play party.
I think so, yeah.
And we walk in, and it was just like this incredible group of friends that just welcomed us with like open arms. And it just kind of
Yeah, we just hit it off with everybody so well immediate, like
spiraled.
instantly. We were like we like had like 4 hours of fun conversation, and we're like, everyone here is great. Why do we get along with them
That's
so
awesome.
well? And then like a really fun, sexy night together. It was in February 2021.
Yeah.
And so it was like right when I feel like everyone was kind of like coming out of their hibernation. And then we just like this big poly community kind of developed from that core group and like another little group sort of joining.
Because we like met all of these people so quickly that we wanted to like get to know them together better. That we would just kind of like have like small intimate dinners with people. Josh and I would just like have people over and like, or just like go on like dates, which is like one or like a couple people of like dating them that way. And it kind of just like felt something so natural of just like we had developed this relationship and then bringing people into it just felt so like, I don't know. It was just like this really fun
It felt
feeling.
like sharing the love so much. And
Yeah.
we've had a lot of different partners of different levels of sort of seriousness that we've dated together. Like in this community, we usually have similar tastes. We're like usually into the same people for one thing. We have just a really good dynamic, I think, dating together. And I think one thing that I really like about it, and we've had, I think, feedback from people too, is that I think we both very much prioritize having individual relationships with anyone we're dating. In the fact that it's not like a couple and a person.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's three people who all have relationships together. And I think that's something that's really important when you're dating, that it's not that it's this like single unit and then you are dating a third person together.
This is
Yeah,
also opposite advice I gave to people looking to dating couples.
it is. It is.
Oh, yeah,
I know
yeah,
I've heard
yeah.
that. But I think it works really well for us somehow.
For us, yes.
Yeah. I think it's because we have such a strong primary relationship and people see that. I think that maybe that makes it easier.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you guys maybe do text separately with that person or whatever, but you are not hiding anything.
Yeah,
I think it's more about the having the things out in the open.
And I think it's very clear we're not hiding anything in the way that we communicate too.
Yeah.
And I think I think we could probably get better at it. But I mean, we usually have really good communication too with whoever we're dating and just hearing feedback. And I think that we haven't heard that there is any feeling of that they're worried that there's something happening with us. Cause I think we give off a very like authentic air that it's like, there's no like hidden emotions here that are happening.
Jeshua, I have a question for you because before we started recording, you mentioned that non-monogamy has also helped you kind of open up to your bisexual side. So I just wanted to learn a little bit more about that. Like, how did that journey start for you?
Yeah, it was really an amazing journey. I pretty recently started exploring with men and started identifying as queer really only a year and a half ago or so. And it really was through this relationship, this poly relationship, that I think it made it so easy to happen, both because of the poly relationship and because of the community. I think the first thing I would say is in this poly community, there's a lot of really great role models of bisexual or pan men who I think having those role models really helped, but also having the ability to explore being in an open relationship made it so much more safe and accessible and easy to do. If I'm in a monogamous relationship with a woman, I can't go explore even if I'm interested. I, had my first sexual experience with a man during a play party that Ari was at and all of us were at, and it felt so supportive, so loving, so easy, that it just made that exploration not scary, which I think it would have been scary otherwise. I think the other piece of it was just going to this idea of having these openly bi role models and being able to meet them and talk to them in a setting in which sexual exploration was possible, made all of that very, very comfortable. I think it's really easy as a man who's interested in women to just identify as straight. It's really been quite a journey since that first moment of exploration till now.
So, had you kissed men before that you had the sexual experience?
I hadn't. That was my first time kissing a man that time a year and a half ago. I always had thought that I was interested in men. I think I'd always found men attractive, but I think I always sort of shut that side of me down because I identified as straight and was very into women. And I think I sort of never had the opportunity and never really had the right environment to explore it.
So was this like someone that you were attracted to and it just kind of happened organically, or how did
Yeah,
you
I was very attracted to him. It's funny. It's funny because I'm just gonna say who it is because he won't care. His like professionally a like bisexual influencer. His name is Zach Zane, and he's like he'd be so happy that I'm talking about him because. But anyway, he was there on that Valentine's Day play party, and we just like hit it off so well. And I think I was like attracted to him, and we were just getting along so well, and it was just such a like a positive environment. Yeah, I just sort of asked him if I could kiss him, and it was great.
So was it just a kiss, or did you guys also play?
I think that event was just a kiss, but we played more later.
So did you like ask him out later, or how did that
I
evolve?
didn't. Most of it has been within other group settings.
Awesome. And have you ever thought of like maybe going on a date with a man?
I have. Yeah, I actually haven't yet gone on a one-on-one date with a man. I definitely want to. Yeah, I should do that.
I think something also just like about this like poly community and just like non-monogamy in general, and like just like letting men be emotionally vulnerable with each other is also like a beautiful thing to get to watch, where I feel like in modern society it's something that's like so like frowned upon, and something that's so shunned. And just to watch men be emotionally vulnerable and intimate with each other who otherwise have never had this experience, I think is a really beautiful thing to watch and like see happen, because I feel like it's definitely something that it's something deprived from
Yeah.
them, and everyone should be able to experience that openly, and like to get to see that is really fun.
Yeah. So you were probably happy to see Jeshua with this man, and I'm just curious. Have you guys ever thought of maybe finding a guy that you are both attracted to, and maybe having a threesome?
Oh, I guess we have.
Yeah.
Oh, you have.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I was just trying to think when you asked me the question of whether I've gone on a date. I guess I actually have gone on a date. I don't have, there aren't any men who I'm like dating the same level of regularity or partnership as women. And I'm still like, I think I would say still early in my exploration of that. But yeah, we've definitely had like threesome experiences with men, and also just in group settings. I think one thing that's just so wonderful about this whole community is like almost everybody is queer at some
Degree.
level.
Yeah.
So it is like a very fluid environment where sort of everyone is, potentially attracted, to everybody else. Like it makes it really easy. And I think that beyond that, just that ability to open up emotionally to other men and not have the same kind of barriers. I feel like I can have the same depth of relationship, the same depth of emotional and maybe romantic relationship with men. It's just been such an amazing, comforting, inspiring change in my life. I just feel so much more connected to my, fellow men. And
Yeah, even with the ones that you're not hooking up with.
yeah,
Right?
I feel
it just
so much more.
opens up this dimension of connection.
Yeah, I feel so much more comfortable just sharing emotions. I don't have those same barriers. And I think also the other thing that I've really appreciated is never really feeling like I fit in as a straight man and not really being able to put a finger on it. Because also not feeling like I identified with gay men. I was like, neither really made sense to me.
Right, because like it's almost like a bisexual man is not in the it's not in the media. Like, that's why I wanted to talk to you about this, because we need more examples of bisexual men out there that are not gay, or just that are more fluid in the way that they relate. As you said, it's almost like you didn't even think of it as an option before, even though you knew that you had some attraction towards men.
Yeah, and I think it's like the being able to express your feminine side as a man still feels very difficult or wrong or something like that in society. And I think being able to identify as queer and be able to really lean into both masculine and feminine sides is very freeing. It feels much more natural, and I felt much more like myself than I ever have in the past, because that's who I am. And I think it's just not having to hide it, not having to pretend something that's not true.
Right, because it also comes with, if you're embracing your feminine side, at least what we consider as feminine as a society, which is sharing your feelings and crying and all of that, then, you are free to do that, which is like, I think what probably the biggest trauma that men have, right?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
that they can't cry, like boys don't cry,
Yeah.
that sort of mentality. If you can just like let go of that and be like, I can be masculine, fuck women and whatever, and I can also be feminine and fuck men, and be vulnerable and I'll do all the things. I can be aggressive and I can be tender, I can be,
Mhm.
and again, I'm putting this in a dichotomy. That's kind of how society sees it. So yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
And I think that the connection to poly is really strong too. I think the fact that this idea of non-monogamy and polyamory, especially this idea that it's okay to share love with multiple people, I think makes that so much easier, because I can share my love with men and women and friends and non-binary friends. And like, it's just about loving other people, and having that queer poly, both of those things together really gives this like feeling of so much love to give and receive from everyone around me, both friends and partners.
Well, you guys sound amazing, but I'm sure that it hasn't been as easy as it sounds right now. Are there any like things that have been challenging in your journey that you might want to share with us?
I think the hardest thing is some of the stuff I talked about up until now is just my difficulty in communicating at first. We sort of started off with this more idea of non-monogamy, and I think it's evolved into this idea of polyamory. And I think that
Yeah.
that's something that has the fact that we don't hold back the types of romantic feelings we can feel for other people, and the types of depth that those relationships can get. And it's definitely not just about sex with our other partners. I think some of the things that have been difficult for me was just being afraid that I had to hold back, and I was like lying to myself. And then because I was lying to myself, I was lying to Ari. I never felt like I was lying to Ari purposefully. It was more like, oh, I actually feel something, exciting and tingly and romantic-y for this person. And I felt like I was holding that back. And I think learning to communicate that honestly, and I think it's really like learning to be honest with myself foremost, and not just kind of do the thing that I felt like was easier. And I think that has been the hardest thing in this relationship for me generally, has been listening to myself and recognizing what I actually feel and communicating that, rather than kind of, shutting a lot of things down that I think a lot of my instincts would tell me to do about my own space that I needed, my own boundaries, but also my feelings towards other people. I had to learn to be honest with myself before I could be honest communicating. And every time it happened and I did communicate, it was so easy. Ari made it so easy. It was so accepting. It was so good at listening. And so good at also stating what she needed from me. I think like the other day, I think I happened to have like 2 dates in a week or something like that, which is unusual. I usually don't have that much time. But Ari stated, oh, like I want like one more day with you this weekend. I think I would feel like neglected if I didn't get that. And that like was so great. It was so helpful to hear that from her. So I think that like that two-way communication has made my ability to communicate so much easier, feeling like I always get what I need back in the other direction.
Yeah, because when I hear people talking about that, like, how once they said it, it was all great. It's great that you communicated. I always think like, yes, but also the person you're communicating with has to be receptive
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah,
So
for
like,
sure.
I'm not saying that if your partner is not like, oh, I'm so excited for you and your new connection, then that's wrong. But
Oh
but
yeah.
like for listeners out there, if you feel like your partner is not providing a space where you feel like you can be honest without them like lashing out or making you feel wrong for it or whatever, that's a red flag. And I think it's great that you guys have the space to actually talk about things.
Yeah, I think something really important too, just to like remember in this kind of like world is like your partner is doing everything that you've like agreed to, but what you need changes every day, every week, every month. And you just kind of have to like listen to yourself of like, I don't know, you might be going through something tough and like you might say like, hey, like I need more time with you, like, and just like voicing that. And sure, maybe they can't meet you all the way of everything you need, but just like voicing that out instead of ignoring that and feeling like you're being like needy. It changes. Like sometimes we spend like several days in a row, just us, like, and that's amazing and we have a great time. But sometimes we spend maybe like 2 days together. But reading what you need at the moment, I think, is really important.
Right, because it's not just like, creating boundaries or asking for what you want once. It's like what you want might change all the time. So it's
Yeah.
like that continuous checking, like, okay, how am I feeling about this? I know I said I was fine with it, but am I actually fine with it now? As long as you are being honest in the moment, like, you can always change. So yeah, so with all that amazing journey you guys have been in, dating separately, dating together, finding a polycule, what do you wish you knew when you started your journey, or what message do you want to put out there for listeners?
Learn how to communicate well. If you know what you want, don't be afraid to ask for it. I feel like a lot of people are afraid to feel like they want to ask more of a partner than they think that the partner is willing to give. And I feel like often people want the same things, or if they don't, like making compromise. And I feel like just putting out your wants and like what you need sets you up for, I feel like, just like better results rather than not saying what you need and trying to compromise. I feel like that's something like it took me a while to learn.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people, when I tell them, oh, yeah, I'm open, they're like, my partner would never accept that. Like, they would never be open to that. And I'm like, you might be right. I mean, you know your partner better than I do, but have you asked? Just ask. You really don't know. Because I've also heard a lot of people being like, when I finally like opened up and said that, they were like, oh, I've been thinking about the same thing, and you just have to do that. Or, as you said, even if your partner is not, if that's something that you want, then can they compromise a little bit for you, even if it's not your ideal situation? So yeah, I think always opening that door of communication is important. Yeah.
That, and then also realizing your relationship doesn't have to fit into exactly like one of the like terms, like are you poly, solo poly, hierarchical, like there's so many different vocabulary words that you can use to describe your relationship, but in the end it's just making sure it's what you want. And I feel like a lot of people put stress on the vocabulary rather than what they actually need or desire, or like what works for them. And people have this idea of like, oh, this is what I want. But then when you actually think about it and like they break it down, it's not what they want. And they
Yeah.
get like stuck in the terminology, and just going by what you feel and like what your requirements are. I feel like that's an important thing to learn.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one as well, because I feel like there's also people who are like, oh, but we're poly and this is what poly people do, so I just made this assumption or whatever. And it's like, well, everyone has their own version of non-monogamy, right? That's why
Yeah.
I like using just non-monogamy, because
Yeah.
that just means more than two people,
Yeah.
and that's it, and after that is whatever you define it to be.
Both of those things too, but to add another piece of advice, getting in touch with what you actually want and feeling like what you want is valid, because I think this is a lot of the journey into the world of non-monogamy, of realizing that maybe what you want, non-monogamy, is valid. And I think once you open up your mind to what you want is okay and doesn't make you a bad person or doesn't make you a bad partner, then you can communicate those wants. And I think for me and for a lot of people, listening to your own wants is really difficult. So, really investing in listening to yourself and unpacking what you deeply desire, what you deeply want, and understanding what is actually important, what's not important, what might be acceptable, and communicating what that is. You can give your partner, partners, or friends, or family, or anyone the way to treat you in the way that is going to make you flourish and make you happy.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because, it's like not just communicate whatever, like it's like, okay, take 1 second, like journal. I mean, that at least for me, that's what makes me understand what I want and what I need, or just like identify those moments in which you feel very happy and those moments in which you feel unhappy, and question yourself what was about that moment, right? And how can I ask other people to provide me more of that, and how can I ask other people to provide me less of the unhappy moments. And of course there's always sacrifices, especially in relationships, but yeah, I think those are great advices. So listening to what you want, not putting your relationship in a box, and then learning to communicate those desires, and happily ever after. Yeah, I love that. Thank you guys so much. That was really
Yeah.
awesome.
Thank you so much. This is really fun.
Yeah.
It was great to get to talk through it all.
That's it for today's episode. If you heard something in this episode that you feel might resonate with either a partner of yours, a friend who's going through something similar, please don't forget to share with them the episode. If you don't follow us on Instagram yet, please do so at Polycurious Podcast, and you can always write to us at polycuriouspodcast@gmail.com. This is the second to last episode of the season, so I'll see you guys for our season finale, in which Mariah, my occasional co-host, and I will talk about our relationships. So stay tuned for that. Thank you guys for your support, and I'll catch you on the next episode.